Good morning, government students. This is Mrs. Politsky, and I have notes for Chapter 7, Section 1, talking a little bit about how a bill becomes a law. And we are going to use your handout that you received. At the very bottom, where it talks about introducing a bill, there are a handful of terms on that sheet. You can cross that out. But you are going to need for a moment either a sheet of paper, loose leaf, or if you've got room on the back of your handout, to write down a few things as far as talking about the process. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how a bill is introduced and how it works through both houses of Congress. So just so you know, bills can be introduced either in the House or Senate. If it is a bill that is dealing with taxpayer dollars, it's always going to begin in the House of Representatives. So to begin with, a bill is introduced. You can introduce it in the House or you can introduce it in the Senate. Once it's introduced in the House, it goes into the hopper. If it's in the Senate, you have to be acknowledged by whoever is the chair that day. It could be the Senate pro tempore or someone else who is kind of running the gavel. After that, the bill is sent to committee, and in that committee it will be studied, maybe researched a little bit. It's possible that a bill could die right in committee before it ever leaves there. Once it is ready, then it will be voted on by a committee, either in the House or Senate. And again, a bill could die right at that point in time. If the bill would pass the committee vote, then it will go to the floor for debate and a vote, or it will go to the Senate, if it started in the Senate, for debate and a vote. It could die right here during debate or fail the vote. But if it would happen to survive and be passed, then what will happen is if the bill started in the House of Representatives, it will go immediately to the Senate, and it will go through the whole process again, meaning it will be introduced, sent to committee, voted on committee, and debated and voted upon. If it started in the Senate, then it will do the same thing in the House. It will go there and it will be voted, it will be introduced, sent to committee, voted on the committee, and debated. Once the bill has gone through both the House and the Senate and it has survived, if there is different wording or wording that has changed on that piece of legislation, it will go to a conference committee, and in that conference committee they work out any of the differences of that bill to get something that is similar. Then at that point it will be sent to Congress to vote for the final passage. Again, it's possible that once the bill gets to this point, the bill could die, and that would be the end of that piece of legislation. It's also possible that the vote will come in favor of the bill, and then it will eventually go to a president. And the president will have the opportunity to sign this piece of legislation, or they can veto it. And they have a variety of different veto options. They can just basically say that they refuse to sign it, veto it, send it back. If that happens, then maybe members of Congress could try to override the veto. The president could use a pocket veto that they could use maybe towards the end of a congressional session. If the lawmakers go back home and the president decides they're not interested in this, they could just wait it out, and after 10 days this piece of legislation would die. Or if it's dealing with maybe not so much the federal government, but maybe a state government, you could have a governor use a line item veto, which would allow them to cross out a word or an entire line or paragraph from that piece of legislation, initial it, and then go ahead and sign that piece of legislation into law. All right, looking ahead, we're going to take a look at the front side of your sheet here, and we're going to talk about different types of bills here. There are private and public bills. Private bills deal with individuals and places. So for example, if we're naming a specific group of people, or if we're naming maybe a locality that perhaps maybe we want to change into a wetlands area, that would be a private bill. Public bills deal with the entire nation, and they're usually pretty controversial. They have a tendency to deal with things like taxes going up, gun control, or perhaps maybe national health care insurance. These may change over the years as far as the controversy, but for right now, these are probably some of the more controversial issues that you might see in public bills. All right, other things that might come up that are not necessarily bills, but they deal kind of with lawmaking. You can talk about a resolution. A resolution kind of is like a bill, but it doesn't require perhaps maybe the president to be as involved in the process. Typically, a resolution deals with like an internal matter of only one house of Congress. There are times when maybe you could have both houses involved and you could have like a joint resolution. And usually this is used to correct any kind of error in a law, or if there's a special need that comes up to appropriate some money. So an example of that would be if there was a natural disaster and there was a need to send money to a part of the country that had received some damage and they need relief, that you could do that very quickly. There's also what they call a concurrent resolution. This does not have the force of a law, and it doesn't require the president's signature to take effect, but it does impact both houses of Congress because they would both have to pass that piece of legislation. All right, number 6. Fewer than 10% of any of the bills that are introduced before Congress ever become public law, and there's some reasons for that. One is that there's a lot of ways that you can delay or kill or change a law. There are a lot of compromises that have to take place to make a bill become a law, and the whole process can be very time consuming. And number 7, new ideas for bills have a tendency to come from private individuals, interest groups. Interest groups hold a lot of power in this process today because of the fact that uh, lobbyists in Washington typically make a lot of money. Matter of fact, a lot of former lawmakers become lobbyists, and they have that influence. Some bills might come from the president or other officials in the executive branch, so like cabinet heads, perhaps maybe the Secretary of Agriculture or the Secretary of the Department of Transportation. All right, to introduce a bill in the House, a member must put that bill in the hopper. And if you're in the Senate, to introduce a bill, all you have to do is be recognized by whoever is the presiding officer of that day. All right, I hope you got everything written down.